Adventures waiting in every nook. Dragons, quills, and stories are told. Let your imagination unfold. Oh, stories unfold, dreams take flight. Join the journey day or night with David Gailey. Set your mind free. Discover the magic of creativity.
Hello, and welcome to the Something Interesting podcast, a show for aspiring writers, literature enthusiasts, and anyone fascinated with the written word. I'm your host, David Gailey. Each week, this podcast will be divided into 4 segments: something I'm working on, something interesting, something of value for writers, and something funny or humorous. Since this is our first episode, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is David Gailey, and I'm an aspiring author and storyteller. I'm currently enrolled in the English and Creative Writing program at Southern New Hampshire University. I aim to complete my degree by the end of 2024 and then pursue my master's. While I've been writing for years, I'm still learning and have yet to be published, a major goal I'm working towards. But I'm eager to hear your stories. Are you an aspiring author, or are you already established and building your platform? I'd love to connect with you. Feel free to reach out to me at contact@davidjgailey, Gailey.com. And now on to something I'm working on. This week, aside from my class assignments, I'm working on a short story for the SNHU Fall Fiction Contest. The guidelines are that it can be no longer than 1,500 words in length, and it will be judged on originality, thought process and structure, engagement, character arc, and grammar/writing style. For this assignment, I drew inspiration from Brandon Sanderson's short story, I Hate Dragons, a humorous tale about a dragon hunter who is tired of being used as bait. For anyone who hasn't read this story already or would like to, you can find the story posted online on his blog at brandonsanderson.com. Just search for I Hate Dragons. One aspect that makes I Hate Dragons unique is that it's written entirely in dialogue with no tags or descriptors. The story is written entirely inside quotation marks of the people talking. This sounded interesting to me, so I took it on as a challenge to write a dialogue-only story for my entry to the Fall Fiction Contest. I think part of my motivation was due to the 1,500 word count limit for the story. How do you make a short story compelling with a character arc in so few words for someone like me? Now, all you masters out there who know how to do it, feel free to write it and share it with me, your secrets, so that I can learn from you. My story is tentatively titled There's No Such Thing as Dragons, and it explores the healing power of storytelling and the importance of mentors and finding purpose. I'm currently on the second draft and hope to submit it by next week. If you're interested in reading it once it's finished, just check back here and it will be posted online. What are you working on? Do you have any short story projects in the pipeline or longer pieces, longer works? I'd love to hear about them. Let me know and we can discuss it on the podcast. And now on to something interesting. I've been listening to Stephen King's memoir on writing as an audiobook, which contains a fascinating 2-hour and 45-minute introduction, which he has titled CV for Curriculum Vitae. I found this to be particularly compelling. Writers aren't simply born or made. They're shaped by adversity and experience. It's often only after years of self-doubt and struggle before an author fully embraces their identity as a writer. When Stephen King begins his memoir with key moments from his life story, he's reminding us that a writer's journey is deeply personal and shaped by more than just the craft itself. I was blown away to learn that in a moment of frustration with drafts of his novel Carrie, he tossed the manuscript into the trash. It was his wife Tabitha who found it, read it, and recognized its potential. She encouraged him to finish the story, which became a massive success and launched his prolific writing career. This is a powerful reminder for a few reasons. Sometimes the difference between success and failure comes down to perseverance and the willingness to see something through, even during, and especially during, the difficult times. I think this is also a great example of the importance of cultivating positive supports within our writing life. Having someone to encourage you and be in your corner can be invaluable. So if you're feeling disheartened about your writing, remember that even the masters like Stephen King face doubts, and persistence can make all the difference in the world. And I think if Stephen King were to grace our podcast, he would tell us that he still has doubts and challenges to this day. Now, they're obviously not going to be the same doubts and challenges that he had when he first started out, but I'm sure there'll be questions about, do I still have the same ability that I used to? Am I still resonating with the audience in the way that I want to? Am I still being impactful and compelling in my storytelling? And of course, the answers to those questions are yes, but it's still going to be an emotion that he's confronting in some form or another. And now onto something of value for writers. At the end of Brandon Sanderson's I Hate Dragons, he discusses using the maid and butler technique when crafting some of his dialogue. This is a term referring to exposition delivered through dialogue. It's when characters share information they both already know solely for the audience's benefit, which can feel unnatural. The maid and butler trope originated from scenes where characters, such as a maid and butler, discuss obvious facts to inform the audience. This is a common technique used in theater plays, but in writing, it's a trap that you want to avoid most of the time. Here's an example of ineffective exposition through dialogue. You know, George, if we don't get that bomb defused before midnight, it's going to blow. So in this case, George and the narrator obviously are both aware of the bomb, and stating it in this fashion sounds forced and awkward. And in that regard, a good indicator that you're using exposition through dialogue ineffectively would be to ask yourself, is this something my character would say in real life? Or am I using this as an opportunity to explain something to the reader which could be said in another way? Here's an example of effective exposition through dialogue. A sister, I can't believe you missed Dad's anniversary dinner last night. And the brother, you know why I couldn't be there. So in this scene, the dialogue reveals tension and hints at a backstory without overt exposition. So this is done effectively. Now, Brandon Sanderson uses the maid and butler technique to set up his story in the beginning, and I think it works for the story, particularly because it's a funny story and quirky to begin with. In the beginning of his story, the protagonist is talking with his boss, and he says, "You know, boss, how we're dragon hunters?" And the boss replies and says, "Well, yeah, it says so on your blooming jacket, dragon hunters." And so there we learn right off the bat that, okay, we're dealing with dragon hunters, and he's going to his boss to talk to him about a problem. And then it goes on further. He says, "Well, you know how I'm used as bait for the dragon?" And the boss says, "Well, that's your role, isn't it? That's your job, isn't it?" And it goes on from there. It's very well done. It's very clever. It's witty. It works. And I really admire Brandon Sanderson. I think, of course, he could pretty much do anything he wants, and it's going to turn out well. But for most of us, we need to avoid doing that. I had my own experience with this. I had submitted a paper as part of our writing project for a class. Shortly after submitting the paper, the professor sent out a class-wide announcement. Of course, the announcement went to everyone, but I had to wonder, because I had just submitted my paper not long before, if it was directed at me, where she gave some really bad examples of using exposition through dialogue and why you should avoid it and not to do it and so on. And I had to go back to my story and look. I went back to my story. I'm looking everywhere. Did I do that? Yeah, and sure enough, there was a scene, and it was a kind of a cliche scene. There was a man standing on a wall, and he was kind of prophesying to the crowd that people gathered around. Some were calling him crazy, and he's like, "Well, I've been telling you that, been warning you they're going to come back," or something to that effect. And in any case, I had to murder that scene for my story. Even though I did feel I had done it in a way that wasn't that worked for the story, I did ultimately decide that it was too cliche, and I went ahead and murdered that scene for my story. which is the term "murder my darlings," which we'll talk about on another episode. Have you struggled with exposition in your writing? How do you balance providing necessary information while keeping the dialogue natural? Do you have any tips or tricks that you can share with us? And now on to something funny. The AI craze is in full swing, and I absolutely love it, even when it gets a bit wacky. Using detailed prompts, I've been creating images for my projects that are both engaging and interesting. And I've decided to share some of those images with you on this podcast. So, for those of you who are listening, I have a collage of pictures on screen. These represent images that I generated using Gemini, Dolly, and Midjourney to represent works that I've written already. So a couple of them are poems, a couple are blog entries, and a couple are for actual works of fiction in progress. Along the top row, there's some faces. There's a woman's side profile. She's got a concerned, stoic look on her face. She's got fiery red hair. It's wispy. The wind in the background. There's two children holding hands on the beach on the sunset, and you kind of get the feeling that she's thinking about these children and feeling maybe even a little bit sad. There's a man staring at his phone. In the background is a city that's kind of blurred out, but you get the feeling that it's gray and gloomy and maybe raining. And he's staring at his phone, and it looks like he's debating whether or not to respond or what to do. And then there's a mom type character who's reading a book, and she's kind of looking up, and a thoughtful expression on her face, whimsical. She blows the hair out of her eyes, and she looks very festive. And so you kind of get the feeling that that's a humorous. That might be like a humorous piece, and it is. It's for a blog post that is somewhat humorous. And then for my works of fiction, there's a man staring into the mirror, and the man staring into the mirror, his face looks kind of menacing, even though you can't see it clearly. You get the impression that there's something menacing about that person's expression. He's pointing at his reflection in the mirror, the reflection staring back at him. Even though it's the same person, it's different. It has a different look. They look concerned, maybe worried, maybe trapped. And this represents a story that I'm writing about shapeshifters, and which is a topic that I absolutely am fascinated with and love. And I thought I would just share these with you. So I love AI in this sense because it makes artwork and so many other benefits, but in this case, artwork in particular, much more accessible to authors and to those of us who are just starting out. But it can get it wrong too. And so before doing this podcast, I had a couple of variations of the podcast that I was starting out with. One was called the Cyber Collective, which was about cybersecurity. The next iteration of that was called the AI Collective, and these were podcasts about topics that I have experience in and knowledge in. I've worked in IT for a number of years. I have a lot to say about it, and it's something that I do enjoy talking about. And so when I was looking to do the AI Collective, which was kind of the intersection of cybersecurity with artificial intelligence, I went to Gemini, and this was just me being very lazy, by the way. And I asked Gemini to take the logo for a podcast that I do absolutely love called the AI Fix, and which for anyone listening is a fantastic humorous podcast. I highly recommend it. It's got two hosts, Graham Cluey and Mark Stockley. They're really funny. They're fantastic. It's very simple format and easy to follow along and keep up on the wacky world of artificial intelligence. But I had gone to Gemini and I had taken the AI Fix logo. I had uploaded it and I said, make me something similar, and change the AI Fix wording to say the AI Collective, and then replace Mark Stockley's or Graham Cooley's photo with mine. And I had uploaded my picture, and then change the background into something similar but unique and different, And in any case, here's the result that Gemini gave me back. It just it did nothing original at all. It just kind of put like a band-aid over the middle of where it said the AI fix, and just kind of band-aided the AI collective over that. And then on Mark Stockley's face is my mug pasted from a photo, but it's not even cut out, or and the photo is distorted. The way, and I just thought to myself, well, that is literally what I did ask for it to do in a very literal sense. It was off the mark, but I just found that absolutely hilarious, and thought I would share it with you on this segment of the podcast. I have so many other stories about that: AI hallucinations, AI lying, and so on, but we'll save those for future episodes. Well, that wraps up today's episode. I'm just starting out, and I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podchaser or YouTube. And if you really like the show and want to support me, don't forget to click follow so you won't miss an episode each week. Feel free to reach out to me at contact@davidjgailey.com. Until next time, keep writing and stay inspired.
Open the pages, take a look. Adventures waiting in every nook. Dragons, quills, and stories are told. Let your imagination unfold. Oh, stories unfold, dreams take flight. Join the journey day or night with David Gailey. Set your mind free. Discover the magic of creativity.